Welcome to Smart Women Talk. This is your host, Katana Abbott. I'm a midlife millionaire coach and a certified financial planner, and I search the world for smart women and a few good men, including best-selling authors and thought leaders who are on that leading edge. So join us for conversations on money, business, health, and inspiration so you can live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity. Hello, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to thank you for coming to hear Smart Women Talk. This is International Women's Month, when organizations around the world are joining together to celebrate the achievements of women. So today I'm going to be introducing you to one of my favorite women's organizations of all time, because they're doing something special. They're working with our young women, and it's a long-term program. So this program is called Women of Tomorrow. And so we are going to be talking with two of the leaders of this organization, Jill Harris and Michelle Fanroy. We're going to be talking about the roles mentors play in empowering the women of tomorrow, the best advice to give when mentoring young women, and why empowerment really needs to start with young women. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Jill. Jill Harris is the executive director of the Metro Detroit Women of Tomorrow Mentor and Scholarship Program. We'll talk about, they have scholarships. She has dedicated her life to improving education, working as an intervention specialist with a teaching certification. She has designed and implemented programs for children at risk of failing school. Jill's experience and dedicated commitment in implementing programs for at-risk students makes her the perfect leader for this very important organization, and I just cannot wait for you to hear from her. Then we have Michelle. Michelle Fanroy is president and founder of Access One Consulting. It's a consulting firm that designs, implements, and manages national and global strategic corporate mentoring programs. Her passion for mentoring aligns with the mission of the Women of Tomorrow, and where she is really actively involved. She has her sleeves rolled up, and she is working to help prepare these young women, along with all the other mentors, for the real world and for long-term success. So, okay, ladies, welcome to Smart Women Talk. I'm so excited to have you here. I have been a big fan of this program, and I have taught a financial literacy class. I have attended your fundraisers, several of those, and I've attended those beautiful, beautiful luncheons that you put on, where the girls graduate, but they also receive their scholarships. Welcome for joining us today.
Thank you, Katana.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you. Okay, so Jill, let's start with you. I just want you to share with us, what is Women of Tomorrow, and tell us a little bit about how it got started and just what you do for these women, because it's really special.
Thank you. We've been in Metro Detroit since 2011. Our founder is from the Detroit area, worked at WEYI in Flint, started as a weather person, and she didn't ever expect to be in the position that she was in as a newscaster. She went to Oakland University in psychology, and that's kind of where she started learning about women's psychology. What is Women of Tomorrow? We're a mentor and scholarship program that help young women 9th through 12th grade navigate from adolescence to young adulthood and find their way, helping them, motivating them, empowering them, inspiring them to find their path in life. And Michelle is one of our most amazing mentors, has been with us for 10 years, Michelle?
I think so, yeah.
And she was one of our mentors of the year a couple of years ago. And really, we are Women of Tomorrow because of women like Michelle that are professional women, highly accomplished, that mentor the young women in the high schools. And we are in 55 Metro Detroit high schools, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, Washtenaw counties, and we have over 110 mentors that are not professional mentors, but they're professional women that volunteer their time every month and go into the classroom. We work during the day 1 hour, one class period, but it's more than that, Michelle, as you know, a lot of prep, time taken to make sure that you're giving them the session that they need that day to prepare them for their future.
Yeah, Jill, I agree. All the women I've seen that you have as mentors are amazing. Mm-hmm. And I just want to share that my husband's in the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and our leader, who sadly passed away recently, was very involved with Women of Tomorrow. And here she was, the president of the Detroit Symphony, leading this huge organization, working all kinds of hours. And she made time in her schedule to be committed to this program. And, it's not just, it is a long-term commitment, and they have prep work they do, and they do it for 4 years. So
the difference we make in the community, and sometimes I'm so passionate about it that we mentor over 1,000 young women each year. And that's a lot. And so we're able to touch on, it's not a one-on-one mentoring, which is great. One-on-one is great. We mentor a group of girls in high school that are 9th through 12th graders. When I think about women with our mentors that go above and beyond, like Michelle, when she has other things scheduled, it was one thing that our mentors do is they don't usually reschedule the mentor sessions because they know how much the girls need it. We have 2 mentors that have also been with us. They were founding mentors. They went through their first year of mentoring with the young women, and we're in schools that are not always, we're in schools that need us. So Judy said to Joanne, I just don't know if this is working. I don't know if we're making a difference. I just think that, I don't feel we're making a difference. And Joanne said, let's just give it 1 more year. If it doesn't work next year, if we still feel the same way, if we don't feel like we're doing anything, we're making a difference, then okay, but let's give it 1 more year. The next year, when they went back to school, they walked in to the classroom and the girls are like, oh my gosh, they're back. You're back. And I think it was all just being there and coming back. And they were like, they couldn't believe that the mentors came back and were there for them. And
they believed in them.
They believed in them.
They believed in them. I got goosebumps when you told that story because it was so visual. I could see it happening.
Yeah. And then they've been mentoring and they're still mentoring now. They're pretty busy women, and they have continued on. And it's because sometimes, as mentors say, I feel like I'm getting more out of this than the girls are, but it's that way for many mentors. And we always say, give it 1 year because you may not know you're making that difference, but you're making such a difference,
mm-hmm.
In their life and changing their lives. So many of them.
Right. Well, so this is a great time to introduce Michelle. You have been doing this program. I've known you for many years because we started together at American Express Financial Advisors, which is now Ameriprise. And you went off and did your own thing in mentoring. You've been very active in this field, and they are so lucky to have you. So I know you were at Mentium before. What prompted you to make this transition and come join as a mentor for the Women of Tomorrow program?
Sure. Well, thank you again, Katana, for having me. And we've known each other for well over 20 years. And so it's always a thrill to see you and it's an honor to be on your show. I was at a place in my life where many of the women who might be seeing this video might find themselves. You transition through the seasons of your life, right? And my children were getting older. My daughter had already gone to University of Michigan. My son was still home prepping for college and all of that. And I really wanted to give back, but I didn't know really in what way and what did I really want to say or what did I really want to do with my time. Now that the kids didn't need me as much, I felt that, frankly, I liked that mothering stuff, right? I really wanted to kind of pour into young people in a more deliberate way. And so I thought to myself, okay, now that I don't have the kids that need me on a day-to-day basis as they did when they were younger, I've got more time now. I've got a little bit more control over my schedule, right? And I got an email from a good friend of mine, Lauren Harizny, who's also a longstanding founding mentor in Women of Tomorrow. And at the time, she was the chief compliance officer for Borg Warner. And I'd known her for many years in the different mentoring initiatives that we've been involved in. And she said, you know what we're doing? There's this great program. I know how strongly you feel about mentoring. I know how strongly you feel about mentoring women. And, and she said very honestly, Michelle, she said, we really need women of color to be in front of these young girls so they can see themselves. And so she invited me to an event. I learned about Women of Tomorrow, and I thought, I could do this, right? I could really do this. And then after the first year, I remember advocating for, hey, is anyone at Renaissance High School? That's my alma mater, right? And so then they said, well, we actually do have a call into the school. It'd be great if the principal knew that one of their alums really wants to give back. And so that became how we came into Renaissance High School. I love mentoring. And what I find about it was, it's all the stuff you wish you had when you were coming up. You know what I mean? Like I wish I had someone to talk to about the uncomfortable stuff that maybe I don't want to talk to my teachers or my parents about, or, everything from safe dating to managing money, or what is college really like versus, what we see on TV or what we see on social media. And they really ask very great questions. I love engaging with these young women because they are smart, they are intuitive and intelligent, and they have their own opinions. And people sometimes will say, oh, the Gen Zers, the millennials, they are so entitled. I don't see that. I got to tell you, I don't see that. I see young people who are challenging the status quo. They're challenging the things that perhaps we grew up seeing on a regular basis. And they're saying, well, why do we do it that way? Right. And I love engaging with them for that. And I think that so many women like myself, we look at our schedules, we go, I'm busy. I've got all these requirements and all these different things and people and companies that are reliant upon me and my opinion. And all of that's wonderful. But I carve time out for my schedule to be with these young women because I would hear it so many years and in so many ways from other leaders all over the world when they say things like, I get as much as they get, right? And I understood that intellectually, but now I know that because I get just as energized from those conversations with them as I'm hoping they're getting from the discussion. So for me, it's a wonderful way to give back in a really natural way because it's naturally, I always joke and say that mommy is my superpower, but, and so when the kids started to get a little older, I'm just not engaged with them every day like I used to be. And being able to pour into these young women, it's just amazing. And I love it. And I love being able to be in that position.
Well, set the scene for us of what the program is like. So let's talk about you and your partner coming in because you team up, which I think is amazing. And there's a curriculum. So I'd like you to just give us an idea of that first day when you're trying to make that connection and they don't know who you are and what this is about, right? And I want you to tell us, how you get started with them, some of the challenges that you might face with that or they may face. And then I want you to bring us at the end all the way to the last day when they know they've finished. Oh my God, I know. I'm getting excited about it, about how they feel to have accomplished what they did and like the transition.
Exactly. And you know what, when we come into the experience, I did a mentor training session. Jill, I don't know if this was before you came on board with Women of Tomorrow, but we did this mentor training and we brought in a guest speaker to work with the different mentors and so forth. And he said something that I never forgot. He goes, when you're going into those meetings with your young women, you have to be vulnerable. You have to allow the layers to peel back for yourself because they need to know who is in front of them. And I thought about that for a minute, right? And I thought, okay, so in our first meeting, one of the things that my partner, she's a young executive in marketing at Ford, and she's amazing. And she and I are very transparent. We always tell the girls when we come in the beginning of the year, there is not a question you can't ask us. There is not, and this is Vegas. Everything we say stays in this room. And it starts with us telling our story from a vulnerable place. That means that I'm going to tell you the mistakes I made or what I was like when I was 14 and what I was dealing with when I was 15, 16, 17 years old. Because sometimes they look at us and they think, oh, she's got it all together. She's got this, that, and the other thing. They don't realize that we were them not that long ago, and we also had struggles and we also had our own challenges and hurdles to overcome. So that's the first thing is you've got to come to the table authentic and real and vulnerable and sometimes even raw, because the girls appreciate that. They see themselves in that. I'd say this to mentors all the time, and it really applies here. Not everyone will relate to your level of success, but everybody relates to hurdles and challenges and falling short. And so when you can share that, the girls see that authenticity in you, and then they reciprocate that back. So one of the first things I do with the girls is we start to talk about what do they want their lives to look like? I don't think any of them have ever had anyone to stop and say, what do you really want in your life? And more importantly, why is that important to you? I have a daughter who's amazing and she will be turning 30 this year. But when she was about 9 years old, we would sit and talk about, we would have these, what she called girls' lunches, right? And we would go and sit and we'd go to a movie, maybe sit and have lunch. And I would ask her about her goals and I would talk to her about what she wants to experience this year. And then we would have future focused conversations. Tell me about your first job. Tell me about your first apartment. How does it look? Is it a loft? Is it in the city center? Is it in a suburban area? Do you live abroad? Do you live in Detroit? Do you live in another part of the US? And what that did for her is she started to exercise in her mind, what do I really want to experience in my life? And it was so funny. When she had her first apartment, she lived at home for a few years after graduating from U of M, and she worked locally. And then she moved to a great role at Procter & Gamble down in Cincinnati. So she got her first apartment down there and she was getting it all situated and so forth. She sent me a picture after we had left and helped her move in and all that. She sent me a picture. She goes, Mom, this is exactly like I thought it would look like when I was 10 years old. And it was just the way the light came in the windows and the way she had set up her furniture and the way that she had a yoga corner and she loved all these other things. They cannot be what they can't see. So the first way they have to see it up here first. They've got to see it in their mind first. So whether that's creating vision boards or that's helping them to have an authentic discussion around what they want their lives to look like, you kind of have to start there. And so many of them don't get seen, right? We don't hear kids like we should, right? If we're being really honest, we don't pay attention to what they experience or how they move through the world, or what are the things that worry them? What are the things that have them concerned? And COVID brought up a lot of that. A lot of that, those things bubbled to the surface. I noticed that some of our girls, when they were on remotely, they looked disengaged, not necessarily from our content, but disengaged from their lives. Do you know what I mean? Like many of them found it hard to get out of bed. They were having to go to school and watch 4 or 5 siblings at the same time, or they were struggling to stay ahead, or they felt like they weren't learning anything. And so then those who were graduating during COVID, they were worried about, am I prepared for college? Because this past year, I feel like was kind of a throwaway year, right? So we were dealing with a lot of those hurdles. And so one of the things I really do love about mentoring is everyone can learn something from everyone else's journey. But we oftentimes don't find ourselves in a situation where we can have those deeper conversations around who someone is, what matters to them, what are the things that they've experienced in their life, and then how can I take something that maybe you, Katana, have used in your life that's been helpful to maybe help me on my journey, and vice versa. And that's where that exchange happens within Women of Tomorrow that I love that part of it. Yeah.
So can you share like a success story, like a specific story in your group of gals? You don't have to give names or anything, but just, where someone was really stuck and then something happened in the program that turned it all around, and how that made her feel, and also
Absolutely.
How it made you feel and everyone in the group, because I'm sure everyone wanted to celebrate with her.
Yeah, we have so many wonderful success stories in our girls, but there was one particular young lady that I remember when we started. I think she was freshman, sophomore, and we were talking about careers, right? And she said she wanted to be a fashion designer. I thought, okay, we want to honor where they see themselves at that particular point, but part of our job then is to create a bigger world for them because they probably only see this much of the world. Let's give them a bigger view of what the possibilities are. So we started doing these career panels, if you will. And so I thought they automatically get colleges recruiting, so they don't need us to do that stuff. But what the girls were saying was, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know how to make these choices. I don't know what I want to major in school. And so we thought, well, let's give them some options, right? So we started bringing in these speakers. And one day we did a session on finance. And we had someone representing a private CPA firm, and we had someone representing a hedge fund. And they talked about what it was like when they were 15, 16, 17, and why they made the choices they made and mistakes that they had made and so forth. And so fast forward 2 years down the road, and this young lady is about to graduate. She's a senior now. And we were going around talking about where they were going to school and what they were going to major in. And she said she wanted to major in accounting. And I thought, that's different. Tell me about that. She said, you know what? When we did that career panel, and the ladies talked about why they chose finance or accounting or, investment banking and so forth, it was because they loved numbers. They were great at math. And she started to ask herself, she said, you know what? I'm good at math too. I could do that. And here's the beauty of it. I can do that and still work for a fashion house or automotive or healthcare or any other industry for that matter. And that's when I realized we are changing these girls' lives, that they start to see themselves in the story of someone else and think, oh, wait, I have that too, or I experienced that too, or I have that skill too. How can I use that for myself? And that just gives me goosebumps because her life now has been forever changed. She's since graduated from college. She is pursuing her master's in accounting. She's had amazing internships. And every time I see her post on social media, I just get so proud of our girls. And so it's wonderful when you stay connected to them and you can see them growing as women. Oh, just the best.
And we have lots of stories like that where girls are, they start in 9th grade and they think, well, maybe I'll not even finish school. Maybe I can't wait. I'm going into high school and I can do whatever I want now. I can, but then they end up, when they join our program, we have a 95 to 96% high school graduation rate, which is very high. And many of our girls we offer scholarships. So that's part of Women of Tomorrow Mentor and Scholarship Program. And if the girls are in our program for at least 3 years, they can qualify for scholarship. It improves their attendance, their academic performance, their social skills, their leadership skills. It's everything. It improves everything in their lives and the people that they're around and their friends. And so it's not just the one young woman that is in there or, but it's all of her siblings and all of her friends. And suddenly, there may be 30 young women in that program, but then if each 30 are around, they touch 5 more people, it's larger than that. But that is part of like the program where these young women that go on to Harvard and U of M, of course, but Harvard and Yale and amazing things. And we have a alumni program that a lot of them come back and they mentor. There's stories also of young women that probably wouldn't graduate and they're at our high schools they're just trying to get them through to graduate.
So you're talking about a couple of things: being seen by these mentors and being recognized, and then having someone that can actually believe in you. And I think that's so important. I want to just share something real quickly. I did a 8-week financial literacy course for Vista Maria, which is an orphanage in Detroit. And these gals had aged out and they were keeping them on in housing until they could, go to the next step in their lives. And so I taught them about saving for retirement. And I was talking about, you keep putting this money away and how it was compounding. And the one girl raised her hand. She says, why would we ever want to put money away that we're not even going to touch? And I explained how they need to get this big pot and then someday it would pay them income. And she said, why hasn't anyone ever told us about this? And she was angry. She says, no one has ever explained this. And here she was, over 18. And I had the sheets on the wall, how you tear off the sheets and with notes on them. And they asked if they could take those with them and keep them and put them in their room.
I wish somebody had told me, and I'm angry that I didn't know, because I would have millions right now, right?
I love it. I mean, first of all, I have to thank my high school economics teacher, Gary Hutkins, for giving me the love of investing. I felt like classes were things that I suffered through until I went to that econ class and we had a stock project. In that stock project, I ended up having one of the best stock portfolios at the end of that semester, and we got a chance to go to lunch at the DAC. And I had never been to the DAC. I didn't even know what the DAC was. And here we are, these little high school girls sitting at the table having lunch with all of these big business leaders who, at the time, I had no idea who they were, right? So that was where the seed was planted for me. And I've loved money management ever since. So I try to talk to kids about it in their teen years to say, hey, let's talk about what a Roth IRA is. Let's talk about the power of compound interest, right? Let's talk about savings, and let's talk about setting a budget. How many of them have never seen a budget? Their parents have never talked to them about a budget. Maybe their parents don't use a budget. I consider myself at this phase of life way more comfortable than I was 30 years ago, but I still use a budget. Right? I want to stay in control of how my money is spent, right? And so we talked about that. I share with them what a budget looks like for my kids when they came out of college, and then how it evolved, right? So that they can see, okay, here's what I need to look at when I'm evaluating what apartment to get. Do I get a car or not? How much are the real expenses to having a car? It's beyond just the car note, right? You got to have gas and insurance and parking and all of those kinds of things, right? And so when we started to break all of this down, the girls are like, oh, okay. So the first thing I tell young people, I said, you know what? Get good at being a roommate. Get good at being a roommate, because when you're a great roommate, it will help you save that money, right? It'll help you in those early years, put those dollars aside. And so I talked to them about how many people want to be a millionaire. And of course, everyone raises their hand. And I said, okay, what do you think you need to do to become a millionaire? And they talk about, well, I need to found a company. I need to come up with an interesting idea. And I was like, what if I told you that if you started saving $100 a month from the time you were 20, 21 years of age until you retired, you would be a millionaire? And they're like, what? And I was like, that is the power of compound interest. That is the power of the stock market. That is the power that you have to make some good choices for yourself. And as you make more money, you save more money, right? And so it's interesting when they talk about the things that they want, they think that they're so far out of reach. Our job is to bring that down to the reality of today and let them know, no, this is doable. This is not only doable, but if you just follow a few simple steps, you can have everything that you've ever wanted. Sometimes you can't have it all at the same time, right? But you can have everything you want. So get clear on what you want. Get clear on why you want it, and then put together a plan to actually make that happen. That's called exercising your agency, right? It's crafting a plan in your mind, putting a plan together, and being empowered to do the steps necessary to get what it is that you want. And if you speak to them in real terms, I think kids just need people to talk to them like real adults. They're just mini adults. And so we sometimes talk down to children. I don't like that. I think we need to talk straight at them, tell them the pros and cons. Here's what's going on. Be authentic and real. I would tell my own children from the time they were young enough to understand language, whatever question you are brave enough to ask me, I will always give you an honest answer. And so I say the same thing to the girls. So sometimes they would ask really sensitive, personal, you know, vulnerable types of questions. And I think to myself in that moment, I'm like, okay, I set the stage for this. So now I got to walk the talk, right? So then you have that, you dig on in and you have that deep conversation, and they appreciate that. And so money is something that everyone has to learn how to do and how to do well. And so we want to set them up for success, not just get them to college, but to establish habits that will carry forward for them, their children, their families. It's amazing. It really is amazing. So I love talking about money stuff.
And our mentors, I think, create that sense of comfort with the students. So then they can have that open, honest discussion that they can't have with anybody else, basically. You know, they're in school, so they're just going through their classes. But when they're in this session, it's and it's crazy how it's 1 hour, 1 day a month, and it makes such a big difference. And they look forward to it. And the next year they look forward to seeing their mentors. And then once they graduate, a lot of times they stay in touch with their mentors. And we also offer different internships and that we have with our mentors and our donors. And there's a lot of opportunity for our girls. But I think just their resiliency that they have, that they learn that they can be who they are and it's okay, but wow, there's really something I can do that. I can do that, you know, that's something, you know, so I think that's where we make that difference and that connection for them in becoming those resilient, responsible adults and break that cycle of violence, poverty, and abuse, you know, so that's our goal, you know.
And sometimes it's tough, you know, sometimes it's really tough because you see the light bulb go off in a few girls. And like when we did the money session, one of the girls said, wait, I want to learn about the stock market. I want to learn about the S&P 500. I want to learn about index funds, right? She wanted to dig deeper into that, but we were at time and, you know, but you could tell some young ladies they're interested, but not quite sure how to take the information. And then others, you can just see that it probably just where they were at that point, it just went over their head. So one of the first things I realized what made mentoring in Women of Tomorrow tougher for me was in the early stages was realizing that not everyone's going to get it right away. Do you know what I mean? Like some people will get it right away. Some girls might click a few months later, or maybe a year or two later, much like how the young lady changed her idea of where she wanted to see her career. Some, it could be years or maybe never, right? I had to realize early on that my only job is to plant the seed. My only job is to come to the table with great intentions for we hope for them to gather from the conversation, but that the outcome I had to disconnect myself from because that's not our job. And that goes to the advice I tell them, which is you're only responsible for the next right step. When they get all this anxiety about their futures and all the things that they have at their disposal, they're nervous about making a wrong decision. And I try to tell them, you know, you're not responsible for all of these steps all the way out. You're only responsible for the next right step. And I can't take credit for that. That came from Mother Oprah. You know, she was talking to a group of Stanford MBAs, and one of the things they were worried about their futures. Imagine these amazing MBA students from one of the top programs in the country, and they were worried about their futures. And she said, you're only responsible for the next right step. So when I come across kids who are, whether they're in high school or they're in college, and they're worried about where do I take my career, I always tell them, always, first of all, come from a position of learning. How can I be better, right? How can you acquire skills that are transferable, that are marketable? But you're only responsible for the next right step. And maybe that's so I'm only responsible for picking the next right class or the next right major or the next right job or living in the next right apartment, or it's steps to life, right? You don't go from here to all the way up here. It's a series of steps. And frankly, as we probably all know, because we've been around a while, things aren't linear, right? You don't just go here like this. Sometimes it's you're around in circles and it's zigzag, and sometimes you take steps back, but eventually you get to where you're going. So I really love talking to them about how lives evolve, right? It's not how you think. It's the next right step. You sit with that for a minute. If it feels good, great. If it doesn't feel good, guess what? You can make another choice.
Right.
And that's where your power is in the choice. You get to choose the life you want to live. You get to craft the experiences you want to have. And if you don't like where you are, you get to choose to make a different choice. And that, I think, helps them to see themselves as less as victims, right? There are no, and we say this, there are no victims in this room other than the truly victimized, right? You get to choose the life you want. And so those are lessons that I learned the hard way. Those are lessons that I tell my daughter and my son. And hopefully we walk that talk ourselves in our own lives, so that we're not just preaching at these girls. These are lessons that we've learned oftentimes the hard way, and they appreciate that.
And I love that because I have this written down because I see that you're doing visioning and values right at the beginning. And they cannot be what they cannot see. I wrote that down. You're only responsible for the next right step, and your power is in your choice. So those 3 tips, I think, this has been such a rich show. And I think to leave our listeners and those watching, to leave them with those 3 tips, this is something that they can use in their own life, with their own children, and just with mentoring all the young people around them. And I'm hoping that's what people take away from this program, is that they can do this today in their own lives with the young people around them. So thank you so much, ladies, for sharing this today. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having us
so much. Thank you for having us, Katana. It's always good to see you.
Absolutely. Can you tell us how people can connect with you?
Going to the website is probably the best way to do it. womenoftomorrow.org. That would be a great way. I mean, if you would like to contact me directly, I would love that. And I'm j.harris@womenoftomorrow.org. But, and you can also get a hold of me through the website, but we would love to have anybody that's interested in mentoring, attending our events. And we also just welcome you for, guest speakers and volunteers for events. So we would love to have anybody.
And the events are always wonderful. So I encourage everybody to go to the website, womenoftomorrow.org. Okay. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tana.
Thank you so much for joining us at Smart Women Talk. And if you want to get involved, you can go to joinsmartwomen.com, and then you'll know who our guests are. And there's all kinds of extra bonuses you get by getting onto our community. So until our next show, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity. Smart Women Talk is brought to you by Smart Women's Empowerment, a 501c3 nonprofit project of United Charitable. Music by Bill Lucas from his album When It Rains. Available on Apple Music and Spotify. Catch us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and be sure to join our free community at joinsmartwomen.com to access all our free Smart Women resources.